So we'll continue our discussion on Sfiras HaOmer. We've been discussing whether Sfiras HaOmer Bizman Hazeh during our time is a biblical mitzvah or rabbinical. Clearly, before the destruction of the temple, when we had the Karban Omer, it was biblical. Maybe it still is. But either way, it's a machlokas among the poskim. Most assume it's only rabbinical today. So my nafkamina, we were going through different practical differences, whether Sfiras HaOmer is daraisa or drabanan. So one we mentioned on whether the common practice of not saying today's date, but saying yesterday is day 25, 26, whatever it might be. So if Sfiras HaOmer is daraisa, you don't have to worry about that because mitzvah srichas kavana. On a biblical level, we paskin mitzvahs require intent. So if I'm just responding to a question with no intent to fulfill my mitzvah, it wouldn't even be an issue. But if it's d'Rabbanan, so then there's reason to be machmer. That's why from some sunset on, the custom is not to say the day. And if you do, so then there are those who are machmer, are strict, and of course you continue counting, but that night count without a bracha. That was one nafkamina. And we discussed what is the earliest time one can count. So we said that perhaps the issue is counting at ben hashmashas. Could you count during twilight, the time period between sunset and nightfall? Because the mitzvah of Sfiras HaOmer is at nightfall, or perhaps we'll have to see what it is, but that's what we think it is. And therefore, the time period between sunset and nightfall is ben hashmashas, is safek yom safek laila. So would one be permitted lichatchila to count Sfiras HaOmer during this time period? And if one is not, what about b'di'evet? If one did count during this time period, would it be okay? So at first glance, it would seem to be this machlokas Rambam and the Bali Tosas. The Rambam holds it's daraisa, safek daraisa l'chumra. Therefore, one would not be permitted to count Sfira during this time period. If you did, it's a meaningless activity, and you'd have to count over again. However, according to the Bali Tosas, it would seem that it's only a drabanan, safek drabanan l'kula, dow regarding a rabbinic law of lenient. This, by the way, Tosas says it's not only b'di'eved, Tosas holds that's the ideal time. Why is this the ideal time to count? Because since we have a mitzvah of tamimus, we have to make it a complete count. It's not just complete in terms of the full 49 days, but we want to begin as early as possible into the night. So Tosas says, one suggestion, even counting before Shkia, which some people don't even believe he suggests that, but he does. But he certainly also says count at the beginning of Shkia, because it's the beginning of possible night, and therefore you should count at the beginning. That's the Tosas sheet in general. But working with the principle of safek drabanan l'kula, so at first it would come out according to those who hold this daraisa, it's no good. According to those who hold this drabanan, it is good. That's the way we paskin. That at least certainly b'di'eved, it's good if you count during ben hashmashas. What about lichatchila? So the Ran writes, what seems to be simple pshat is no. Safek d'Rabbanan l'kula is a post facto principle, not a lichatchila principle. If you're asking me, did I fulfill my mitzvah of Sfira that night? The answer is yes. But if you ask me, should I have counted at that time? The Ran says no. It's still a safek d'Rabbanan l'kula, that you fulfilled your mitzvah. But if you're asking me, is that the ideal time for counting? I tell you no. And others say, as the Bali Tosas, and perhaps others say, no, even l'chatchila you could count during ben hashmashas. So what is this machlokas? What is this issue between the Rishonim on whether, according to the Rambam, the discussion doesn't even begin. If it's biblical, ben hashmashas is off limits. But according to those Rishonim, and there are many who say that you could count during Sfira, What is this dispute? Whether it's only b'di'evid or even during Ben during
Ben Hashmashas.
Right, during Ben Hashmashas. What is this issue on whether it's lechatchila to count during this time? Like some seem to say, or b'di'evid. So the way it seems to be a machlokas in how you learn the principle of Safek Daraisa L'Chumra, Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kul. We know we have general klolim, we have general rules in Shas we always work with. A doubt by a biblical or a strict, a doubt by a rabbinical or lenient. So what does that mean exactly? So I'll give you an example I like giving. Let's say you walk into, I won't mention any names, you walk into a supermarket which has kosher meat in it, or you walk into a butcher shop and you see 50% off. Well, when was the last time you got a 50% off sale on meat? On the rib steaks, on the Miami ribs, on the beef tenderloin. You run over there and there's a little small sticker on it. This meat is Suffolk kosher, Suffolk treif. The meat got mixed up and we're not sure if it's kosher or not. So that's why we have a 50% off. So, of course, you're coming back at a nice bike ride, a nice workout, wherever it might have been, and you're very hungry, you're feeling lucky. You say, well, Suffolk, okay, 50% off, it's hard to refuse that kind of deal. It's only a Suffolk, I'll take my chances. I'm feeling good about myself. So, okay, so you make a nice barbecue, you enjoy the meat, and so afterwards you start feeling a little guilty. Well, maybe I shouldn't have, now that the taiva is over, the basar taiva, I'm over it, maybe I shouldn't have, and it's something that bothers you the rest of your life. You think about that day when I had this Suffolk rice, this meat. So finally you get up to Shamayim after 120 years, and of course you're waiting outside online, and you quickly call over the angel and say, I'm going into, and remember May 4th, 2011, whatever the day was, remember I had that meat, tell me, I got to know, was that meat kosher or not? The angel says, your lucky day, it was kosher. You're feeling very good now. You walk into God, we have the scales working, and he's going, oh great, nice mitzvah here, this wasn't so good. He gets to May 4th, he takes that piece of meat, puts it on the Avera side. He said, no God, you don't understand, I spoke with the angel, that meat was kosher, you're putting it on the wrong scale. So God says, no, you don't understand. When we say the principle, Savek Daraisa L'Chumra, it's not B'Torah Suffolk. I'm not saying it might have been generated from a Suffolk, but once the klal is Suffolk Daraisa L'Chumra, that's B'Torah Vadai. It doesn't make a difference anymore whether the meat is factually, physically kosher or not. Similarly, if you eat a piece of meat, Suffolk D'Rabbanan, and it turns out to be treif, but Suffolk D'Rabbanan isn't just a maybe. Suffolk D'Rabbanan L'Ku is telling me it's pasking the Shaila. You have 100% right to eat this piece of meat. Whether it's kosher, that's irrelevant anymore. It's true it might have been generated from a doubt, but the psak is b'torah vadai. So this is what I'm saying is a machlokas achronim, how you learn this klal. So if you hold Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula is b'torah vadai, so once I'm passing Sefira Omer's D'Rabbanan, I could count Sefira even lechatchila during Ben Hashmashas. But if you hold the other way, Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula is only b'torah Safek, not b'torah vadai, then why should I put myself in a point of Safek? I should wait until nightfall. So that seems to be the issue within the Rabbanan camp. Do I have a right to lechatchila count during Ben Hashmashas, or do I have to wait until nightfall? That's why halach l'maisa. That's why my minhag is, and I think Ramosha brings it down and others. Since we pass in Sefira Omer is only D'Rabbanan, so therefore lechatchila, since it's a machlokas even within the Safek D'Rabbanan camp, you should wait until nightfall. However, what is nightfall? You don't have to wait to the 7th. You don't have to go for the most machmir shita, like finishing Shabbos or finishing Yom Kippur, but you could go with, let's say, the 20-25 minute shita. Let's say the Graz Seitz, the Vilna Gaon Seitz, which, depending where you live, is anywhere between 18 minutes and it also depends at the time of the year. But 18, let's say I'm making up the numbers, somewhere between 18 and 25 minutes after sunset, that's the ideal time, because number one, you're waiting till nightfall, And according to the Bali Tos, others, you should be doing it as early as possible in Sefira. You want to keep the Tamimis. So that's why on the Mitzvah D'Rabbanan, and this is true not only for Sefira, but this is also true regarding the other fast days. Assuming that you're going to wait until nightfall for Yud Zayin Tammuz, Asar B'Teves and Som Gedalia, you don't have to wait to the same time Shabbos is over. It's only D'Rabbanan, it's only a minute today to keep those fasts. And that is how a minute we keep it. But once you're waiting to nightfall, you don't. So therefore, on a mitzvah Torah, we're going to be strict and look for a later nightfall, like Shabbos and Yom Kippur. But if it's a mitzvah D'Rabbanan, and plus you have shittas that say you should even count during Ben Hashmashos, during Sefira, it's not only shouldn't, I think it's l'chatchila to count the 20 minutes after Shkia, because therefore you're covering everyone, nightfall and Ben Hashmashos, and since we passed it is D'Rabbanan, yeah.
You said that those minor fasts are a minhag. They're not even mitzvah D'Rabbanan?
Okay, so let me explain more. So there's a Gemara in what I mean anyway. It's not the minute. Well, I'll explain with the Gemara. So the Gemara tells us in Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara goes through the different times you have to send messengers out to find out what days of the week. We have different holidays coming up. So therefore you have to. They talk about sending our messengers out. You're always going to have people. Eventually, you're going to find out what day it is. But especially want to know when you have a yontif. You have to know when to celebrate. So the Mishnah conveniently leaves off Tammuz and Teves. Well, Som Gedalia is in Tishrei, so that's included. And I'm not sure if it leaves out Tisha B'Av. So it leaves out those two. It leaves out those 2 months. The Gemara asks, what about Tammuz and Teves? How are we going to know when to fast on Asar B'Teves? And how are we know when to fast on Yud Zayin Tammuz? So the Gemara says, Gemara quotes the pasuk from Zechariah, Som HaRavi, V'Som HaChamishi, V'Som HaShavi, V'Som HaSiri, Yelehem L'Sason U'Simcha. The pasuk in Zechariah seems to have an apparent contradiction in the pasuk. On one hand, it's called Som. The fast, again, it's always in months. The 4th month, Yud Zayin Tammuz. The 5th month, Tisha B'Av. It doesn't give us dates in the Nach. It only gives me month. And then at the end of the pasuk, it says Yelehem L'Sason U'Simcha. It will be a happy day. So which one is it? Usually when I'm fasting, I'm not happy. Is it a fast day or is it a happy day? The Gemara says, you're right, it depends. There are different time periods in Jewish history. The Gemara says, Bizman Beis, well, I'm just paraphrasing what it means. It doesn't actually use this language. But what Rashi, what the Mefarshim warn is as follows. When the Beis HaMikdash is up, that's a time of Shalom. So then it's a Yontif. It's a happy day. When the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed and we're under religious persecution, it's a fast day. It's a sad day. You have a chiyuv to fast. And when you have no Beis HaMikdash, but no religious persecution either, i.e. perhaps now in North America, so the Gemara uses a language, Ratzu Misanin, Ratzu Eino Misanim. If you want to fast, you can. If you don't want to fast, you don't have to fast. That's the Gemara. So, to get to the Gemara's question, and hence that's why the Gemara didn't send out messengers. Since it was only optional to fast, so therefore there was no need for them to send out messengers. Tisha B'Av is different because the Gemara says it was double trouble, both temples. But also Me'ikir Hadin HaGemara, fasting is optional. Today it's not necessarily optional. Today is Klai Yisrael have taken upon themselves, and that's the question whether it takes on a din d'Rabbanan or a minig. Either way, it's only not Gemina for people in need of eating. It's not all things being equal, we don't have a choice of fasting on that. We have to fast, but then it gets into how strict you have to be, how sick do you have to be to not fast, not too sick at all, and also at what point do you have to end the fast. It's relevant to other factors, not just all things being equal. We don't have it. Where else do we have a similar machlokas in the Gemara about whether something's optional or not? It's no longer optional for us, but it was optional at one point. Correct.
What is that?
Tvilas Aravis. Oh. We know we have Shacharis, Mincha, Ma'ariv.
Yes, right.
So there's a machlokas in the Gemara in Brachas between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua whether Tfilas Arvis is Rishus or Chova. Is evening service optional or mandatory? So how do we paskin? So Meikar Adin HaGemara, we paskin Tfilas Arvis is a Rishus. We paskin like the opinion. However, as the Bahag writes, however, today Klal Yisrael in the good senses have taken upon Ma'ariv as a Chova. Today we don't have a choice. So that's actually a Machlokas Rambam and Ravid. There's a Rav Chaim on it in terms of what's Pshat. Again, what's Pshat in the Rishonim? That today, do we fundamentally view it as a Rishus, except we treat it as a Chova? Or now, fundamentally it's changed. Do we view it as a Mainaf Kamina? That's because it seems to be a Machlokas Rambam and Ravid. Let's say a person's davening and you realize in the middle of Mincha, you realize you already davened Mincha. So what do? Do I just close up shop, say Baruch Shein Kavod Malchut, or do I finish davening? So the Rambam writes that basically you have to stop because you can't. What do I mean stop? And what would you do? Turn it into a tzilas nadava. In other words, if you're ready daven, so then it's extra davening. It's called like we have a carbon. So the Rambam writes you can't have half a tefillah as a chova, half a tefillah as a rishus, as a nadava. So, however, the shaila is that the mincha is clear. Everyone agrees. The shaila is what about Ma'ariv? It happens. Let's say you did an early Ma'ariv, and then they need you for a minute. You forget you're in the middle of davening Ma'ariv, and you realize you already davened Ma'ariv. So that's a machlokes in the Rishonim whether I keep on going or not. Because why? The issue is how do I view Ma'ariv today? Do I view Ma'ariv fundamentally? It's still a rishus, except we treat it as a chova. Functionally, it's a chova, but meyikar hadin, it's still a rishus. Or do I say the character of the Ma'ariv changed now? It's no longer a tefillas rishus. So that's the same issue, Jeff, by the tainus. Functionally, functionally we treat it as a chova, but do we say fundamentally it's still considered a rishus, and therefore in terms of makam sar, makam chola, when we end the fast, therefore, so that's another example we have by Ma'ariv and we have by the tainus. But getting back to Sefira, so that's why it's a general rule. That's why people don't understand, like on the calendar, when let's say a fast is on Thursday. Let's say the fast will end. We're making up the time 5:15, but Shabbos is over 5:45. Is it a mistake on the calendar? Nightfall is nightfall. Well, that's not so simple. Nightfall is nightfall, but you're right. But according to the Gra, nightfall is also 5:15 on Saturday night. Since Shabbos is the deraisa, and if you don't want to take a chance that you're wrong, it's a serious penalty. So we just go with the more stricter opinion. It's not that it's just that we're going with different opinions. It's not that the same person changes his opinion for Shabbos, Yom Kippur, and some other day. It's a matter how when we write the calendar, it's a matter whether if it's a biblical law, we're going to take the later opinion. But if it's a mitzvah midrabanan, so then we're going to go with the more lenient opinion. Because especially in the case of Sefira Omer, we want to get Tamimus in. It's even lechatchila according to some Rishonim to start at Ben Hashmashas. Because Safek Drabanan Lukulas B'Torah Zvada. Even if you don't want to work with the Bali Tostas, you want to work with the Ran, one should say Sefira is earlier. You should look for the earliest nightfall you could find, about 20 minutes after Shkia, and that's when you should be saying Sefira Omer. That being said, the minig in most yeshivas is to wait, because they wait all the time. Because if you wait 72 minutes all the time for everything, so then it would make sense you wait. If you always view nightfall as 72 minutes after Shkia, then the minig is to wait for Sefira also. But those who don't, so then you should count l'chatchila at the Seitz of the Vilna, which is about 20 minutes after Shkia.